Hey, it's BessieLB, and I am back again with another episode on Ask Me BessieLB. Let's talk about it. Today, I want to discuss a little bit of anxiety and depression and just kind of learning how to, I guess, be okay when you're not okay. Like being okay within yourself when you're not okay. Being okay to say that you're not okay. This really touched home for me just because over the years from when I was younger, I've dealt with depression and it goes in waves. If you have depression, then you understand that depression goes in waves, right? There's sometimes seasonal depression where you only experience it in the winter and the rest of the year you feel fine. There's the depression where certain things affect you and then you instantly just don't feel well. Then there's times when you're fine in a day and all of a sudden you just feel so sad and emotional and you don't even know why, right? So there's a lot of different factors to depression. So yeah, I've dealt with depression since I was younger. And then as I got older, it just fluctuated. It just went up and down. It came in and out. And then anxiety, I didn't really deal with that until I got to grad school. Once I went to grad school, that's when I dealt with anxiety, and I thought like, I'm not gonna lie, before I was just like, when people were saying, oh, I have panic attacks and I get anxious and all this stuff, and I'm just like, okay, like I can understand someone getting worked up, but I never really understood what was the whole concept of, falling out, blacking out, having like panic attacks and stuff. Like, as other people may have thought, I was kind of ignorant to it in the sense of I'm like, you should be able to control yourself. So it wasn't until I went to grad school, and I think that was just a tough time for me. Grad school was not easy, and living in New York City and just dealing with all kinds of other life situations that I had never came across really took a toll on me, and I experienced anxiety. And when I experience anxiety, I usually have panic attacks when it gets to like a very high peaked level. And that then reflects to my body trembling, and I black out, and I kind of go into this like defense mechanism where I literally cannot control my physical being, and my mental being goes into this scared mode that requires like a pair or a loved one to kind of just coddle me and hold on to me to kind of bring me back out of what's going on deeply within my mind to reality, right? Like I remember that I had an anxiety attack in grad school. I had like two, okay? And a lot of the times it was during like projects and exams, and just not only had anything to do with grad school, it was just my personal life as well. And I never knew what it was. I remember being on the train and just feeling like everything was just like shaking. And it went from like my legs shaking and twitching to my hands shaking to my head just like doing this shaking motion that like I couldn't control. And I was just like looking at myself in my mind. I'm like, what is going on? And all I can see is my body reacting. And I remember being on the train and people kind of looking at me like, is this girl having a seizure or something? Like, cause it would go from like 0 to 100 literally quick. And I remember just being in grad school and just falling out, blacking out. People thought I was like having a seizure, going through stuff. If you went to grad school with me, you know what I'm talking about. And I remember going to the hospital for it and having to go through an evaluation of like why I'm having these feelings and these expressions, and when did my anxiety start and panic attacks and all this stuff. And I remember looking at them just like, I don't know. I've never experienced this before. And I never forget when one of the EMT people came to get me, and I remember her saying, you just gotta calm down. You just gotta calm down. Like if you just relax yourself, then it'll stop. And she's like, you have to stop shaking so we can do whatever they needed to do. And I remember in the midst of it yelling, I can't stop shaking. Stop fucking telling me to stop shaking. Like, I literally lashed out. It was crazy because I couldn't. I couldn't stop it. I like literally could not stop myself from the trembling. It was bad. And so that just goes to tell me that for professional people and for normal everyday people, don't judge a book by its cover, and don't tell someone to try to control something when they're in that matter. If you're not fully aware of anxiety, look it up. But I'm a person to tell you hands-on, firsthand, on that. It is an experience that is very scary. It's an experience I've never dealt with before. I grew up seeing people with epilepsy, seizures, all this stuff. And I would be there where we had to like turn them on their side, all this stuff. But I never knew what anxiety really looked like. I knew what depression was. I knew what sweeping your bullshit and your problems and your this was. I knew what that was. I knew what that looked like. I knew what being scared was and all this stuff, but I never knew what anxiety was. I just knew that I experienced depression. So to then add on anxiety was like, what is causing me to be this way? So, you know, I go through therapy, and we start talking, and we start going over coping mechanisms and how can I kind of like combat the anxiety before it gets to this peak of the trembling and the blackouts and the falling outs and just not knowing what's going on. And then that's when I got my dog. I got a emotional support animal at the time, Obama. For those of you that don't know, that's my dog's name. He's such a sweet, smart, loving boy. He's a Pomeranian Poodle. More so looks like a poodle, more so have those poodle character traits. I'm gonna insert a photo for you guys. And he's the sweetest boy. And I literally got him for these reasons, guys. For depression, for anxiety, and really just trying to understand myself. Right? Like, I'm in therapy and she's just like, oh, we can get you like an emotional support animal. You can turn him into your service animal, all this stuff. And that's when I went and got him. So that's another thing. That's another story to talk about, people getting emotional support. And it's not really emotional support animal. Calling their animals service animals and they're not service animals. All this stuff. That's a whole nother topic. But I'm here to discuss that don't take those things lightly when someone's telling you that they're going through something. And if you're a person that's going through something, don't take it lightly on really honing in on self-care and self-awareness. Self-care in the sense of taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally when you're going through things. And I find myself getting like kind of emotional talking about this just because it's a big deal for me. And during this pandemic, I didn't really feel a lot of anxiety or depression or things of that nature. I had moments where I felt really great. I felt really great. And then I had moments where I felt lost and I didn't know what to do. I'm sorry to get emotional, but this is very personal to me because I know firsthand what it is to deal with anxiety and to deal with the depression that goes up and down and what that feels like. So just be aware, okay? Just be aware when you're going through it and be comfortable with telling people I'm not okay. One of my main things today to discuss was, I think it's so programmed in our head that if someone say, oh, hey, how you doing, Bessie? How's everything going? And I instantly say, oh, I'm fine. That's like a default answer, right? For everybody. A default answer to say, we're fine. Know when to stop in your tracks and not say, I'm fine, when you're not fine. But also understand that you don't have to disclose or go into details with the person if you don't want to. So you can just say, you know, oh, I'm hanging in there, you know, got a few things that I'm dealing with, but I'm good. No worries, whatever. If you really feel like you got it covered, but you're dealing with it, but you're just slowly going through it, and maybe you don't want to discuss, or just say, I don't care to discuss, but you know, I'll get through it. Something like that. And I that just came to my realization maybe just like a week or so ago, because I was just like, I'm telling people I'm fine and I'm not, right? And it's okay to not be fine. And I know for me, I don't know about anyone else, but when I'm not fine, I disconnect. So I may sign out of social media. I may not be on social media as actively as I normally am. I may not take phone calls, respond to texts right away, or whatever the case may be. And I need that time to just cope and to just deal with what I'm going through. And it hasn't been forever, but it's been more recent that I'm not a medical professional. I can't diagnose myself, but I think you kind of are aware of what's going on in your life. And it's been more recent that I feel like I'm going through PTSD, where I feel like past traumas from my life is starting to hinder my mental on a day-to-day basis, where I'm having these flashbacks and I'm having like these instances that I kind of like choke up and freeze and get into this uncomfortable feeling because I'm remembering past traumas. So just dealing with that. But I just want to tell you guys, if you're going through things, don't be afraid to reach out to someone. Don't be afraid to seek therapy. Or any support groups or anything of that nature. Don't be afraid to do those things, but also do those things on your time, right? You don't want to feel like you're pressured and rushed into speaking to someone that is basically a complete stranger until you get to know them and they get to know you. So be comfortable with taking your time, finding the right person. I can't stress enough how being in therapy is so therapeutic and it's so necessary for everybody. You may not think that you need therapy, but I promise you, just having somebody to reflect with and to just have a dialogue with once a week, or how many times you do it in a week, in a month, whatever, it's so necessary. But make sure that you're vetting that person the same way the person's vetting you. When you first go to therapy, they're doing this intake. They're getting to know who you are and a few little synopsises of your story and what it is that you're going to disclose in therapy, and make sure that you find the right person. I feel like I'm personally going through that right now, where I had a therapist that I was speaking to for like 4 years, and it's come to the breaking point of her not being able to kind of deal with my certain trauma. And it was kind of bothersome to me, because it's like, well, when I was in intake, I said that this is what I was going through. I said that this is what I will eventually need to disclose and to speak about. And I guess after this time, when I was finally comfortable, 4 years in, I was finally comfortable to speak about this aspect of my life. She did not feel like that she was the perfect therapist, I should say, for that specific type of trauma or situation. And I respect it, but it's kind of frustrating, because it's like I've spent so much time talking to this person, and then all of a sudden it's not the right fit when I needed it the most, you know? And then, you know, also just like therapy costs money. Therapy is not for free for the most part. There are some places that's free, and there's some places that aren't. So make sure when you're getting into something, you research thoroughly and you go into it with understanding what you can give and what you can get out of it. And that's the best way to kind of like tackle therapy. So I just want to say, if you're going through something, be honest with yourself, be honest with others, and take the time that you need to fully process what you're going through. Because so many times people are going through things and then they get to a breaking point where sometimes they commit suicide and they feel like they can't continue life out with whatever they're going through. So take your time, gather yourself a support group, really know who has your back, who's going to be willing to support you, and just understand that everybody's going through things. Everybody is going through something, especially during this time. It's tough. And just be cautious of giving and taking, and knowing when to speak about what you're going through to someone, but also ask that person what they're going through. Have an even dialogue, because you can just be dumping all your stuff on someone else, not knowing that they're going through their own thing, and they're just being strong enough to listen to your stuff. and really need that strong ear when it comes to listening to their things. So just be cautious, just be aware, and be helpful as much as you can. And I wish you guys all the best during this time. Today or yesterday marked a year being in LA that we had the emergency stay-at-home lockdown. So it's been a year, y'all. It's been a year here. It's been a year basically throughout America, and it's just a lot. So take care of yourself. Hell, I'm always willing to listen and talk to anybody that wants to reach out to me. I have no problem. And I know I have that support system too with family and friends. So I just want to say thank you. Drop in the comments what you want to discuss, what you feel like is important, or just some words of encouragement on what you're positive and happy for and what you want to work on. And let's just talk about it.